So you need to apply your mind and then start answering, right? So that's why I said, if you are very clear with the concepts, you can answer this. Not, you will not even take 2 minutes. Directly you can start answering this. See, 5 marks question. Okay, any doubts until yesterday before we start?
No, sir. Clear.
No doubt, sir, as of now. Next week we might have.
Manoj, in
Okay.
terms of generation of DIN, when the government can, there is a as per that 14 points that 20 points that we have, either of the criteria if false, the application gets rejected and it has to be like corrected and all. But in one of the point it says that the reject the where the government will be asking the particular concerned person to file a fresh application for the DIN. I mean, there is only one correction allowed, right?
Correct. See, you can resubmit the form. That is, once you file the form paying certain amount, okay, then if the government finds that some document is not proper, same form will be sent back to you to correct that, rectify that form and resubmit.
Correct.
Okay, once it is rejected, then you have to make separate application. That form, fees, everything is gone.
So once the fresh application goes, any discrepancy, there is only one attempt is allowed to make the rectification. Once that is also not fulfilled, then the
Fresh
person has to
application.
go for a fresh new application with all the
Correct.
required.
Correct. Okay, so we were discussing about small shareholders, right, yesterday.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So these are categories of shareholders that I said they usually are minority shareholders. So they also want to have a representative on the board of a listed entity. Right. So who can actually propose this? Yesterday we saw the criteria, right? Election of small shareholder director, page number 699.
Yes, sir. 1,000
1,000 small shareholders or 1/10 of total number of such shareholders. So if you do not fulfill this criteria, you cannot propose a director, small shareholder director. Not allowed. Directly your application gets rejected. Right? So this is the minimum criteria in order for the board to consider your application. This is a minimum criteria. Right? So listed company either may voluntarily have it on their own, or they will wait for some small shareholder to propose some shareholders among them. Right? Both ways is allowed, either on own motion or a proposal from the category that we just mentioned. Right? Both ways are allowed. Okay, so whenever a candidate is being proposed by any of this category, what you need to do is within 14 days you need to submit this to the company, mentioning your details, your shareholding details, your folio number. Okay, so all those details you need to mention in the application, you need to submit to the company. Okay, suppose you don't have those application, you are not a shareholder. Okay, in that case, don't mention your shares details. But however, the application should be made within 14 days. The proposal, right? Notice of intention to propose a candidate. So in the proposal, what will be mentioned? DIN number, bare minimum. Without DIN, then your proposal will be rejected. Right? That is not disqualified to become a director. So going forward, we will see there are certain disqualification. There are certain about 8 to 10 list given there. So which means if an individual is falling under any of those criteria, even if it has DIN, he cannot be proposed for appointment. Right? We will see about that, so that you need to upfront disclose that this person, whomever you are proposing, is not disqualified. And he has to give a consent. Consent is the most important thing, because without his consent, you cannot make that person to be a director, right? So you can just mention or just write down consent in the form DIR2. Consent to act as a director. Form DIR2. Consent goes across not only small shareholder, across all the directorship.
Please repeat that, Manoj.
So whenever you're being appointed as a director, right, you need to give consent that I am okay being appointed as a director. If you do not give consent yourself, then it not going to make sense, right? Other guy proposing you to be a director.
Yes.
Correct. So this I'm saying it goes with all category of director, woman director, first director, all category of director needs to themselves say that I give my consent to act as a director. Right.
Sir, where is that DIR2?
DIR2 actually form is not mentioned here. I think in the going forward we will see, but consent is form that only DIR2.
Okay.
Statement number 3, statement by proposed small shareholder director. So first condition is minimum number should be established in order to propose. Second, when you propose not less than 14 days, you give that proposal to the company along with your details of number of shares that you are holding, or if you do not hold those shares, all those details you will write. Third, you will make sure in that proposal you write DIN number, person whom you are making that name and other details. So basically in the consent form only everything will be mentioned. Just let me show you whether
14 days before board meeting, right, sir?
I'll tell you, see, you need to deposit that to the company. So whenever there is a general meeting, company will take it up.
Okay, general meeting. Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you going forward, all directors have to be appointed in general meeting only. Exception, there are 2-3 categories are there. Okay, barring that, please remember directors have to be approved by shareholders, that is through general meeting.
Okay.
So any doubts still here? Point 1, 2, 3. So once the director gives consent, okay, then the matter will be taken up by your nomination remuneration committee or the board for that matter, wherever the NRC is not there. So in case this is a listed company, so NRC is there, right? Suppose that small shareholder director whom you are proposing, he stands to be an independent director. That is not related to promoter, not related to any of the director. Okay, so that group proposes to appoint an independent director as a representative of the group. He has to give declaration under section 149(6). Going forward, we'll deal with that. There are certain 12 to 15 points wherein you will have to fulfill all the criteria in order to become an independent director. So that person, along with giving consent, he needs to state that, yes, I fulfill all the criteria given here. I am an independent director. I am independent of the management of the company. Right? This is only for independent directorship, this additional declaration. Otherwise, if he is not independent, then this is not applicable. He gives a declaration of independence. Similar, gives a declaration of independence and eligible for appointment as an independent director. So tenure is whenever these categories of shareholders are appointed, maximum they can hold office is 3 years. Right. So after 3 years, that person will not be eligible for reappointment. Maximum that you can hold office as a small shareholder director is 3 years. Okay, so there is a concept called retire by rotation, which I will tell you. So this is applicable only for public limited company, right? So as per retire by rotation provision, it says no director of a company can hold permanent directorship, right? So which means he needs to retire. There is a number 2/3 on that basis. 1/3 will retire at every AGM. Right? So every AGM that person will be put up for vote, reappointment, and voting will happen. Right? So which means no director can hold permanent directorship of any public limited company. Please remember. Okay, so in this case, small shareholder director tenure is 3 years, not liable to retire by rotation. Straight 3 years, then he needs to move out of the company. Reappointment, as I said, not possible. Right? Grounds for disqualification, I'll tell you, section 164. Okay, like we have for surrender of DIN, there are A to E points. Similarly, for disqualification, vacation, there are certain criteria. The moment you fall under those criteria, then you need to vacate office immediately on being disqualified, or if you're already a disqualified person, you cannot be appointed in a new company. So number of small shareholder directorship is not more than 2 companies. Right? So maximum that he can hold as a small shareholder director is maximum 2 companies, 2 listed entities. Third company he cannot hold. Maximum is only 2. So once he completes his tenure, then as I said, he is not eligible for reappointment. He cannot be in any way related to or associated to the company. He has to move out of that company altogether. You cannot make that person as an employee of the company, or in any other capacity. You cannot bring back the same person to the company. He cannot be associated for the next 3 years. So once he completes 3 years, next 3 years is a cooling off period. He cannot be seen. You cannot have any transaction with that person. Right? Any doubts still here?
No, sir.
So Manoj, in terms of small shareholder, you're telling from the date of the board meeting, the documents has to be submitted within 14 days.
See, practically what happens is that person who's proposing, he is not aware of the board meeting. Right? He is only going to put up the matter to you before the company.
Correct.
So company what it does, when it receives, then it calls for a board meeting.
Correct.
Right? It is the shareholders who's proposing this not aware of the board meeting. Board meeting is aware only to the board members or a KMP.
Yes.
Right? How does the shareholder know there is a board meeting or not?
No.
Right? Unless you give a disclosure in the stock exchange. Right? In that also period, there is only 5 days or 2 days as a case may be, as per there are certain criteria are there for a listed entity. So as per the mandate, you need to give within 14 days. Right? 14 days you give a notice. Before that, then the matter will be taken up. Right? So in this case, whatever they are saying before the meeting is shareholders meeting only. See, practically, that's what I'm saying. When the board meeting, though, it is not possible. So whenever the board calls for a general meeting for any other business item, in that case, you are aware because the notice will go to you.
Correct.
In that case, along with that agenda item, you can propose this.
Correct.
So together with that matter, this also will be circulated as an addendum saying, look, we have received this notice from the proposal from this shareholder. Since I've already issued notice for a general meeting, here is an addendum. Okay, so initial proposal was to discuss 1 or 2 or 3 agenda items. Along with that, please consider this also as a part of that notice.
And the cooling off period for the small directorship from the day of vacating office is 3 years.
Correct. So the
Those
moment he
holding to
completes,
sorry.
yeah, the moment he completes 3 years, then he needs to walk off, vacates the office. Any doubts on small shareholder director? Just trying to find.
Sir, can you repeat fourth point? Small shareholder director to be an independent director.
See, independent director, there is a separate concept. I think
Next.
page or so it is there.
Yes.
Okay, so in case you, as a shareholder, you want to propose a director whom you are saying that person should be independent director. In that case, along with your DIN number, that you are disqualified, that declaration that you are not disqualified, declare consent to act as a director in DR2. Along with that, you need to give additional declarations saying, I also fulfill the criteria given in section 149, subsection 6. That I meet the criteria of independence, that I am eligible for appointment as an independent director.
Okay. Yes, sir. Got it.
This is applicable only in case of independent directorship.
Okay.
You are able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just go through this question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the listed company, small shareholder decided on this basis that he proposed to appoint a small shareholder director who shall be okay.
Okay, if you have understood the question, you can try answering, then I will also try to repeat.
3 years they can't be holding the office. Only 3 years. Only 3 years, not 5 years.
Correct. So tenure, in terms of the tenure, we cannot have 5 years. So maximum is 3 years.
Yes. And they're not mentioned in the book about anything relating to resident or non-resident. So
Correct. Exactly. Correct. Good point. Then what else can you observe in the question?
it's a listed company.
As they are saying about the small shareholder director, they have not mentioned about how much share does he hold in the company. How much amount of shares?
Correct. He's saying no, he does not hold any shares in the company.
But the biggest point here,
Any
Manoj,
shares.
is that the small shareholders have decided among themselves
Hmm.
for the proposal, but
Hmm.
those are not the liability. Okay.
He should own, right, less than 20% of the value of the shares. No, not 20%,
See,
20,000.
person who is proposing, it does not matter he holds a share or not. Right. Only thing you need to establish whether they can make an application together. So in the given question, it is presumed that small shareholders have decided among themselves that he is proposed to be appointed as a small shareholder director.
Okay.
Right. You see point number 2, notice of intention to propose a candidate. In that case, it does not matter person who is proposing holds a share or not. But as a whole, as a small shareholder as a whole, they need to make sure that they fulfill the criteria.
Okay. The people who are making him
Proposing,
the director.
yes. So in this case, you will have to tell, you will have to write point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All 9 points you will have to brief in this question, and then you need to conclude what the answer is.
Okay.
Any doubts on this question, anybody? See, first thing is listed company, right? Quoted as listed. Okay, 150 days here does not matter. Okay, Mr. Solid, it does not matter he holds a share or not. Okay, only the proposal has to be recommended by requisite small shareholder category. Right? As I said, he is not liable to retire by rotation because he has a fixed tenure. Right? So because he has a fixed tenure of 3 years, he does not need to retire by rotation. Okay, so you need to explain the relevant provision and state whether Mr. Solid can appoint. So appointed as a Mr. Solid can be appointed as a small shareholder director.
So it is only for listed company, right?
Correct. So here it is given rate listed company. So the person who is getting appointed as a small shareholder does not matter he holds a share or not.
Yes, sir.
Just a second, I'm just seeing if any other question is there. Okay, see this.
The nominal value of the share of the equity having a 5 rupees paid upon as per the latest quote, the national stock exchange market value of the quote.
He doesn't qualify because it exceeds 20,000. Nominal value exceeds 20,000.
Correct, exactly. So remember, we need to always see nominal value, right? Ignore market value, ignore your paid up capital, ignore other whatever thing is there. Make sure your total nominal value does not exceed 20,000. So in this case, Karan will not qualify to be a small shareholder, right? Because 2,500 multiplied by 10, it becomes 25,000.
25,000.
Page number 699.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there it is defined small shareholder.
Yes, sir. Yes. Section 151, sir.
Correct. See, means a shareholder holding shares of nominal value. Okay, don't get confused between other terminologies which is given. It is just to confuse market value, what has been paid up, called up. Okay, that doesn't matter. Your nominal value, if it is below 20,000, then only you will be eligible or qualify to be a small shareholder. Okay, this point 1 to 9, very, very important. One, I think year after year, I've seen questions come up from small shareholder directors.
And it'll always be equity shares only, right, sir?
Which one? Yes, yes,
Always equity. Okay.
yes. See, in the same below small shareholder, they have given explanation. So they have clearly written there. Nominal value of shares is relevant. It does not matter how much paid up capital or market value of shares. Equity plus preference, both. Not only equity, it says equity or preference or both. Right, both.
Okay. Or are they saying he should own equity shares, but he might also own preference shares, but only equity will be considered? Is that what they're telling, sir?
No, it can be determined in both, but make sure in individual capacity your nominal capital does not exceed 20,000.
Okay, including both preference and equity club.
No, not both. Don't club both. On standalone basis, like equity 20,000, preference 20,000.
Okay. Okay.
Any doubts on small shareholder, director? A listed company wants to have on a voluntary basis somebody representing small shareholder. Is it possible even without having to establish point number 1? Voluntary.
Voluntarily, they can't do it.
They can do it.
Can do in the case of listed company.
See, voluntary they can do it. You need not establish that criteria. That criteria is only for mandatory.
Okay.
Right? If somebody wants to propose, then that person, that category of people should make sure that they fulfill the criteria not to propose. But when the listed company itself, on a voluntary basis, wants to make sure that to have somebody representing small shareholder, the director, in that case, you need not fulfill that criteria. Voluntary basis is allowed.
Okay, sir, got it.
It's in the 700 house, page number 700.
Correct. Okay, come to page number 702. The table. Minimum number of independent directors. provision is applicable only for public company and listed company. Private company not applicable unless you're able to establish subsidiary relationship of a public company, right? So if you are a listed company, what the Companies Act says, you need to have at least 1/3 of total number of directors to be independent. If you are an unlisted company, having paid up capital of 10 crore or more, turnover 100 crore or more, aggregate loan debentures exceeding 50 crore or more. Same three criterias, have you read somewhere? Paid up capital, turnover, aggregate loan. Can you remember exact three?
Yes, sir. The committee?
Which committee?
Audit committee, NRC.
Exactly. Right. Right. So same goes with your audit and NRC. Right. The moment that provision is applicable, automatically your independent directors provision also becomes applicable. Right. So which means you need to have at least 2 directors as independent out of the total board composition. So take an example, public company, what is the minimum number of directorship?
3.
Public 3.
Correct. So you have 3 directors, right? Now say that company's turnover is exceeding 100 crore. In that case, out of 3 directors, you need to make sure 2 directors are independent. So that's a minimum. Right? So what happens if I don't appoint independent directors? Or what happens if I just have 1 independent director on board? So it's a violation. Okay, you cannot have it. Right? It's a violation of section 149. Right?
Sir, have they mentioned anywhere about the penalty or anything? Violation.
Yeah, violation it is given under section 172. We'll come back to that, right? Any default in complying with the provisions of the chapter. So you will be penalized under that section. We're able to understand this, right? So what about for a private company?
If they are a subsidiary of public, it will apply or not.
Correct, exactly. Okay, same exemption. Exemption, can you recall exemptions of committees? 3 exemptions.
JV, dormant,
Only one subsidiary.
Exactly. So same applies to here for independent director. Right? A company controls B company, that is 100% WOS. B company need not have minimum 2 independent directors. Right? You're exempt. Or if you're able to establish JV, need not to have minimum 2 independent directors. Or if it's a dormant company, need not to have 2 independent directors. Right? Okay. Similar to your women director provision, what happens if an independent director resigns? There is a vacancy. How do you fill up that vacancy? What is the timeline?
3 months or the
3 months.
meeting, whichever is later.
3 months or?
Next board meeting.
Board meeting.
whichever is later.
Whichever is correct. 90 days.
Correct. So, correct. Whichever happens second. So maximum is 3 months. Right? Either your board, if you are having board meeting, or your 3 months is coming before your board meeting. Okay. So whichever is falling last, but however, it should be within 3 months. 3 months or next board meeting, whichever is later. Same women director and independent director provisions are same with respect to casual vacancy. Right, whenever independent director is there, he resigns or he vacates or there is a disqualification of the director, then you need to make sure that you fulfill that vacancy. Take an example, there are 3 directors in a company, 2 are independent directors. One director resigns, that is independent director resigns. So next independent directors have to be appointed within 3 months or next board meeting, whichever is later. Otherwise, you will be penalized. Got it, right? So till 3 months, government will not do anything. You are still compliant. But if it crosses beyond 3 months, then you will be penalized. Okay, now come back to 702. Definition of independent director. Mark it as very, very important. Or I would suggest you to just read this box 703. 703 is better, I think. Lucid they've given in the tabular form, right?
The last point you're telling, who can be an independent director and who can.
Correct. So first thing is that person should be of a relevant expertise and have a relevant experience. Who determines this? Your board of directors determines. Before going to the board, who recommends that?
NRC.
Exactly. So your NRC recommends, board takes it up. Accordingly, the matter is recommended to shareholders. Proposal is placed before shareholders. Right? So again, it is solely dependent on the board. Right? So board has to determine, in the opinion of the board, you know, to determine that this person is eligible to be independent director. Second is, who is or not related to promoter. Very, very important. Look, promoter is a person who who has started the company, you can say, or incorporated the company, or who has the control of that company. Right? If say I incorporate the company, which means I have the control, in spite of I being the director or I being the shareholder. Right? So I will be promoter. You're able to understand, right? So which means independent director should neither be related to promoter, is or was. That is one of the criteria. Make sure that you're not related to him. If you're related to him, then you cannot be appointed as an independent director. So, yeah, so who has pecuniary relationship with the company, its holding subsidiary associate during immediately preceding financial year, current financial year. So take an example, he is already a director or is already an employee of the company. You want to make sure that person is being appointed as a independent director. That is not allowed because he has already having a relationship with you earlier. Right? So it does not matter is there in your holding company, is there in your subsidiary, or is there in your associate company. It does not matter. Right? So the same person, he cannot become an independent director. So it says immediately preceding financial year or to immediately preceding financial year or current financial year. What if he is appointed last 5 years and he has resigned? He is no more in the company. He can be appointed subject to fulfilling of other conditions. Come to next page, 704. Who neither himself or any of a relative is providing audit service as a proprietor, partner, or is running any legal consultancy service. That legal consultancy service is generating more than 10% of the revenue from this company. In that case, same person cannot be appointed as a independent director. Look, practically what happens is, suppose there is an auditor, right? He's signing your balance sheet, is aware of the company. Okay, so you cannot have the same person once he completes the tenure. You cannot have that same auditor to be appointed as an independent director. That is not allowed, because you are already giving services, audit services to the company, or legal consultancy services to the company, either as a partner, proprietor, whatever capacity in the may be. Same person, you cannot be appointed as an independent director. Or is having shareholding in the company more than 2%, or his relative is holding together with him, which consolidates more than 2%. In that case, still you are not eligible. Right, so today I incorporate a company, I hold say 10% of the capital. I cannot become independent directors of the company because I hold more than 10% of the capital. Maximum that I can hold is only 2%. Maximum. Again, that is subject to fulfilling of other conditions. Right, last point is who either himself or relative or who has been an employee of the company holding subsidiary in any 3 preceding immediately financial year. Right, I have served as an employee of the company or I am working in that company, I cannot be appointed as an independent director. After 3 years, I can be appointed, but for 3 years, or an existing employee cannot be, same person cannot be proposed for independent directorship. So these are negative statements, that is, person who cannot be considered as independent director. Right? You should not be a promoter. You should not be a related to promoter. Right? Either holding subsidiary or associate level. You should not have any prior business relationship, that is pecuniary relationship, last 2 years. You should not be providing any audit service or a legal service as a proprietor or a partner. You should not be holding any shares in the company. Up to 2% you can hold. Right? And you should not be, or himself or a relative should not be any employee of that company. Company holding subsidiary associate. Right, now tell me whether managing director can be appointed as a independent director and why.
No, he is a part of KMP. He is a KMP, so he cannot be appointed as an independent director.
Okay, anyone else? That's correct, partially correct, yes. Am I looking for reason? Or why for that matter, WTD cannot be an independent director? Or a nominee director, nominee, managing director, WTD. So all the 3 categories, same person cannot be independent director. Why? You know the answer, we have
He
discussed.
doesn't fulfill the criteria.
Sorry, could you please repeat again?
They doesn't fulfill the criteria. Like they hold the position of KMP.
Look, as per the definition, yes, they don't fulfill the condition. I'm looking for logic. why they can't be appointed as an independent director? Yes, the law clearly says these three category cannot be appointed as an independent director.
Because Manoj, he is a employee of the company.
They have significant interest in the company.
Correct. You remember definition, WTD definition, MD definition, right? Who are these guys? They are full-time in the employment of the company, correct? So when you are able to establish full-time control, right? Which means you are a part of management. You know the entire decision making, what is going on. Correct. So how can you call yourself as an independent director? Independent director should be independent of the management. Right? Is a person who does not come to your office on a day-to-day basis. One of he comes to you for some clarification, or whenever there is a committee meeting, board meeting, he walks in, or you call him up for any advice he gives you. Barring that, he will not participate in any of the management decision.
There is no business interest.
Right, exactly. So being an MD, being a WTD, you already have a control. You know what is going on in the company. Right, who is this nominee director? Look, nominee director, as I said, representative from somebody, some entity, some authority, some company, whatever it may be. Right? So small shareholder director, right, whenever they're proposing, so they are nominee of that small shareholder. The director who's sitting there in the board, they are the nominee of that small shareholder. Right? So take plain example, company does not have funds. It has approached some bank to lend funds. Right? Now the bank in the agreement says, I am ready to lend you whatever funds that you have asked me, provided you give me one board seat. Which means a nominee of that particular bank will come and occupy your board seat, which means he wants to know what is going on in the board. That is a nominee of that particular bank. That is a nominee shareholder, which means you are already having interest for that particular entity. Then how can you be independent of the company? Right? You are nominee, which means your controlling authority is different. You are per se not independent.
Yeah, because you are a part of the employment of the bank.
Exactly. Look, take an example in government companies. What is government company? If you recall,
More than 51% of shares.
More than 51% of shares is owned by the government.
Exactly. So whenever that happens, right? So government will propose one nominee, say IAS, IPS of that particular state. See, suppose you have a government company in Karnataka, right? That company is controlled by Karnataka government, more than 51%. Now Karnataka government will appoint a nominee on the board. That nominee may become maybe your IAS officer, IPS officer, whatever. Right? So that is a nominee of that government. Right? That person cannot be independent. You understood the logic why your MD, WTD, nominee directors cannot be independent.
Yes.
Independent means not only in letter, in spirit also you need to be independent. Got it right? Who cannot be, these are who cannot be independent director. Very, very important, because tomorrow they will give you certain cases where company is having a business relationship with Mr. X. Now Mr. X wants to become an independent director. It is possible, right? So likewise, cases will be given. You need to establish that that person can be eligible for appointment or not. Right. First is MD, WTD, nominee directors cannot be appointed as independent director. One. Second, that person should not be related to promoter or not related to director in the company, holding or associate. Right. So which means, take an example. I am a director. Okay, I am a director in the company. I cannot have my father or a mother as an independent director. That is not allowed. right? There is nowhere independence. It's a related party, relative. Correct? As a director also you need to establish, as a promoter also you need to establish. Right? Promoter, as I said, who controls the company, either being a director or a shareholder, or indirectly he can control the company. Right?
Sir,
Yeah.
relating to relative, is it like the IT Act same that relative or different here?
Relative in the Companies Act only they have given. There is separate definition and separate section, I will tell you. But as of now, remember relative, right?
Okay.
There are about 8 to 10 specified classes. Say father, mother, husband, wife, daughter, okay, son, all the category. So that is a relative, right?
Yes, sir.
Pecuniary relationship means prior any business relationship you had with that person. You are taking some goods or services with that person. Same person cannot be appointed as an independent director. That is a pecuniary relationship. During immediately preceding financial year. Or your audit service, legal service exceeding 10%, your shareholding more than 2%, or employee, right, in the last 3 years. Right, this is who cannot be independent director. Now, who can be independent director? As I said, he needs to have relevant expertise and experience. Who determines this?
The board. The board of the company decides.
Correct. Prior to the board, who decides if it is applicable? NRC. Right?
NRC.
NRC will propose a candidate, then board will approve, board will recommend to shareholders. Right? So that person should neither be promoter nor it should be relative of the promoter.
Promoters.
Correct? So none of us relative have pecuniary relationship with the company, holding associate or promoter, director, 2% or 50 lakhs, whichever is lower. So again, this is the criteria which is given. You need to make sure that if you are having a business relationship, as we mentioned, that business relationship in any way cannot exceed 2% of your turnover of that company, or maximum 50 lakhs, whichever is lower. Right, during 2 immediately preceding financial year. Right? Who, next page, 704, who neither himself nor any of his relatives holds a position of KMP. So here look, at first place already somebody told KMP cannot be an independent director. Absolutely right. Even if the KMP is already there, his relative also cannot be an independent director. Correct. There is already a CFO. That CFO cannot ask his father to become an independent director. Or that company secretary cannot ask his wife to become an independent director. Right? Last, who possesses such other qualification as may be prescribed. So who determines this qualification again?
Board.
And before board,
NRC.
NRC.
Exactly, right? So ultimately the board has to be absolutely convinced that this person is eligible to become an independent director. Right? See, practically what happens is, take an example, Reliance. Right? I'm saying practically what happens. You don't want somebody outsider who fulfills the criteria sitting at the board of Reliance.
Correct.
Exactly right. Why would you entertain somebody just who fulfills the criteria to know the business of Reliance? right? So which means practically I'm saying it will be some known party or somebody who is known among the established group, or I can say already an independent director is there on the board. That person will recommend somebody, look, there is a guy who I know, he is excellent, you can bring him on board as an independent director, right? That person would have already fulfilled the criteria, right? So this is a known person who is there sitting at the board, right? So now Mukesh Ambani is comfortable, okay, known person, right? So this is whatever given is just to fulfill the requirement of the Companies Act, okay, criterias, but no hard and fast rule that Mukesh Ambani's friend only can be independent director. That is allowed as long as he fulfills the criteria of independence. Any doubts still here?
No, sir.
See, take a look at this issue. Whether spouse of secretarial auditor or stat auditor of the company be appointed as independent director in the company.
No. Relative.
Yeah, so either himself as your audit firm or as a partner proprietor himself or a relative of that partner proprietor, that person not eligible to be appointed as an independent director, right? Now, can a friend of a director be considered as an independent director?
Yes.
As long as he fulfills the criteria of 149 subsection 6. Right? Spouse of independent director can be appointed as an independent director? Answer is no, right? Director's relative also is not allowed. So either himself or his relative, promoter relative, KMP relative. None of those category you can have the same person as an independent director. Okay, tell me one thing, can an executive director become an independent director?
No.
No. Independent director is always non-executive, right?
Perfect. That's a perfect answer I was looking for. Right? Independent director is always NAD. He cannot be executive director, right? Don't forget this. Your non-executive director can be independent or non-independent. Please write down if you can. I mean, if you can remember, that's fine. But if you don't remember, please write down. Your independent director should always be NAD. Right? Your NAD can either be independent or non-independent. That is allowed. Okay, what is the minimum criteria for appointing a person as a director? I want to be appointed as a director. So what is your advice to me?
You should have a DIN number.
Okay.
Not a director in more than 20 companies. That limit 20.
Okay.
10 public.
Okay.
And you should not be a director of a competitive or competition company.
Okay.
You should be resident of in India.
Okay.
Not necessary.
Main point you're missing out. If I don't get a proposal from any company, can I be appointed as a director, or can I hold a DIN? Can I apply for a DIN?
No. So company need to propose, and then you'll get DIN.
Exactly, right. So DIN is a prerequisite to be for any person to appoint as a director. Similarly, for an independent director, along with your DIN, you need to have a data bank registration. Please write down. Your data bank is maintained by IICA, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. So suppose I have a DIN, right? Infosys has called me saying, Manoj, we want to appoint you as an independent director of the company. Okay. So first thing, as an independent director, I need to do is get myself registered in the data bank. Data bank is maintained by IICA. Without data bank registration, I cannot be appointed as an independent director. Any doubts still here?
No.
Data bank from where? Can you repeat that point?
Data bank, it is maintained by central government. That data bank's name is IICA, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs.
Okay.
Any doubts on independent director? Additional thing requirement other than for a director is, along with the DIN, he needs to have a data bank registration.
Correct.
Without the data bank registration, please remember, he cannot be appointed as an independent director. He can be normal director, that is non-executive or executive director, but he cannot be appointed as an independent director unless he has registered himself in the data bank. Any doubts?
So you mean to say any individual who gets an invitation from a company to be appointed as an independent director, the first thing that he has to do is he has to get himself registered with IICA in the data bank. Then if he holds DIN, that is well and good, the procedure can take place. If he is not holding DIN, then he is applying for a DIN number,
Correct.
following which the application process or the criteria further moves on.
Correct. So again, so this data bank registration may vary 1 year, 5 year, or lifetime. Right. So take example, you have applied for data bank registration only for 3 years, and it has got lapsed. 4th year, you cannot be appointed as an independent director because your registration is lapsed, unless you have a lifetime registration.
So is the registration validity period depends on the individual who is applying for the data bank registration?
Individual.
Okay.
You can either take lifetime registration. Again, fees will vary. Lifetime registration, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, as per individual's wish. Okay, so the moment independent director is appointed, the immediate next board meeting in which he appoints, he needs to submit a declaration of his independence. Can anybody remember we discussed which form it is? Declaration.
DIR 6. 5.
Not
No.
not DIR.
2.
DIR 2.
DIR2 is consent to act as a director. This is you are getting appointed, your appointment is done. Immediate after your appointment, you are attending board meeting. Three, 4 classes back we discussed.
DIR 6.
DIR 6 is for change in particulars, right?
Yeah.
You remember a form called MPP1? Anybody? Three, 4 classes back, I clearly remember. So any director for that matter, not only independent director, the moment they are appointed as a director, you need to submit this form MPP1. MPP1 contains details of all his directorships, all his investment details. That is all the companies in which he holds the shares. Okay, why you need to disclose this? Because whenever a company is doing any transaction with those entities in which he is holding a directorship or shareholding, in that case, there is a conflict of interest. Okay, he needs to disclose upfront to the board saying, look, I am already a director in this company or I already have a shareholding. So since it is a conflict of interest, then it will be a related party transaction. I need to take special approval, separate approval. You're able to understand, right? So this every year, it's a process. Every year at the beginning of first year, you do it. And whenever a fresh appointment is there, you do it initially. First time after appointment, initially you do it, and every year, it continues every financial year. Like similar to your DR3 KYC. But KYC you submit to your MCA, but in this case, it's a manual form you submit to the board. So that board can analyze which are the parties in which they should be aware of while dealing. Right, so that there is no conflict of interest, there is no related party transaction, or breach of related party transaction.
In AGM, sir, he has to file.
This disclosure will be given to the board at the beginning of every financial year. Right, how many board meetings should a company have?
2.
This also we have discussed. Please start writing. Sorry?
4.
Exactly. So minimum you should have 4 board meetings. Right? Gap between board meetings should not be more than 120 days. So in the beginning of the financial year, that is in the first quarter, April, May, June, that quarter you will have one board meeting. So generally is that point of time the director gives a declaration.
And the subsequent years, in which meeting he has to give it? In board meeting only, right?
Subsequently, whenever there is a change.
Okay.
Look, likewise in DIR 6, any change in the particulars, you file the form with department, right? MCA. Similarly, whenever there is a change, say initially you have disclosed I hold directorship in 5 companies. Okay, after 6 months, you resign in one particular company. Immediately in the next subsequent board meeting that happens, you give a declaration saying, look, I have resigned from this company, please take note.
Okay, sir. If there is no change?
Don't give. Declaration will be in next year, beginning of every year.
So it's like with DIR 3, every year you have to give.
Correct. Every year at the first board meeting.
Okay.
Right? Or whenever there is a change.
Okay.
First board meeting, you declare and say, look, this is my directorship, this is my shareholding in other companies. Okay? So whenever there is a change, in subsequent board meeting you discuss. Otherwise, for particular year, you don't disclose anything. In the next year, you confirm the same details. Look, there is no thing. Here is my same report as the last year. But you need to date it and sign and give a fresh report, even though there is no change.
Okay.
Same goes with all the directors, all your KMPs, all your independent directors also, no change.
Okay, every year.
Every year beginning. What is the logic? Why the director should give?
The board should get to know about their whichever company they are in.
Correct. Why should the board get to know?
Should not, so that it should not create the conflict.
Exactly. There should not be conflict, which means suppose I am holding a directorship in A, right? I am getting appointed in B. So whenever A and B are entering into a transaction, if I'm having a common directorship, it's a conflict, which means disclosure is required. It's a related party transaction, right? So that is why disclosure is very much required. It can happen that I don't disclose and you start making gains out of it.
Because you have the information to both the companies, you
Exactly.
that they will or KMP will do manipulation in the data.
Yeah, so you have an undue advantage, right? If you don't disclose. So what is your answer if a director says, I will not disclose this MBP1, I will not disclose? What is your answer?
Then you won't, then
He can be disqualified to becoming an independent director.
Come to page number 728. Section 166. Look at point number 4.
okay.
So being a director, it's your right, it is your duty to disclose. Right? If a director does not do it, look at page number 729. Punishment for contravention. You're able to understand, right?
Yes, sir.
So again, I'm repeating, what is your answer to a person or a director who says, I will not disclose my MBP1 at the beginning of the first year?
Fine for 1 lakh or 1 lakh to 5 lakh.
No, under section 166, you will not be obliged to have the duties and also will be penalized with the contraventions of 1 lakh to 5 lakh rupees.
Exactly. So it's a breach of duty, right?
It's a
You're
breach of
breaching your
duty. So under section 166, point number 4, which is he will not be obliged to carry out his duty because of the conflict of interest. And if he disagree for the declaration, then he would be penalized with a minimum of sum capital of 1 lakh rupees to a maximum of 5 lakh rupees.
correct. So you need to tell that person, look, you can't get away with this. If you're trying to get away or to avoid giving declaration, you will be held for breach of duty. Right? Subsequently, penal provisions will be applicable. Got it right?
So, Manoj, in such cases, you will have to mention the condition first, which is the section under which is breaching of the duty, and then the subsequent punishment for that.
Correct. Look, whatever is given here, 166, there are 6 points. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can actually write a book for 3000 page for this 6 points only. Because courts can determine what is good faith. You look at point number 2. Duty to act in good faith. What is good faith? It is not defined anywhere. The court can decide on the merit of the case. A director can say, look, I have acted in good faith. It is the duty of other party to determine that, no, he has not acted in good faith. Correct. Similarly, look, duty to act as per the articles of the company.
Yes.
Okay, tell me one thing. Now I'm a director. Now I will come back to you. You're a company secretary and say, whether should I act as per the provisions of Companies Act or should I act as per the provisions of Articles of Association? What is your answer?
Articles of Association first.
Articles of Association and second as per the Companies Act. Because to both is obliged.
Are you sure?
Companies Act will override AOA.
In what cases it will override? Which is section? Chetna, you're right. You're getting almost right. But in what cases it will be overriding? Look, we have discussed this a number of times here. I don't know.
Sir, but whatever there in the AOA will be written as per CA, right? CA 30.
Correct. What you say is correct. I'm asking in what cases your articles or a Companies Act will override the articles. If you have made notes now in previous classes, if you have just taken notes, you would have answered this question like this. Okay, tell me which is the section? Nobody has written. Let's start. Keep a book and paper in front of you. Your pen and book. Start making short notes so that whatever we have discussed now, you will not forget, and then you go back and revise. That's how it's supposed to work in online classes. Look, high chances are there that distractions may happen in online classes. But whenever you are focused with your pen and book now, then there are very limited chances that to get distracted. It's not that we have not discussed this, we have discussed this. Okay, section 6 of the Companies Act. Okay, Act will always override your articles, your agreements. Okay, your Act is the Bible. But as long as your AOA is not in contradiction with the Act, your AOA is superior to the Act. Please write down. As long as your AOA is not in contradiction with the Act. So being a director, first point of reference is your articles, because articles are sacrosanct with your Act. If it is not, then your Act will override. Any doubts? Any doubts? Please get it clarified. Duty to exercise due care. duty to avoid conflict of interest, duty not to make any undue gain, duty not to assign his office. Very, very important. Point number 6. Look, I hold the directorship. Okay, I am being appointed as a director. Tomorrow, I cannot say, okay, let my friend become director for some time. Assignment of office not allowed. If you are assigning, it is a void. Right, I will be held liable under 166 for not doing my duty.
Sir, but we have read somewhere that a person can give his seat to someone, right? Where is it?
No,
Good,
even in the case of the director is vacating the position for a period of a year or more, where he is traveling and cannot be in the position of office.
correct. Who is the director? Can you recall who is the director?
Yes, I can recall that. I will take a few time. Let me recall that.
That guy is alternative director. You remember alternative director?
Correct.
He was supposed to go out of India for more than 3 months.
Yeah.
In that case, what happens? Your board of directors decide to replace that person.
Okay.
Your board collective decision is to replace that as an alternative director. But here, individually, I can't do it. You're able to understand the difference.
Exactly.
Okay.
I cannot assign office to Siddharth or I cannot assign my office to Chetna. Right? That is not allowed. However, if the board feels, okay, Manoj is gone to Switzerland, he is not coming back for another 6 months, we need somebody to fill his boots till he returns back to India. Let us appoint somebody alternative to him until he returns back. That is collective decision of the board. That is allowed.
Okay.
So I am going out of Switzerland. I cannot say that, okay, Siddharth, I am going out. You do one thing, you be a director on my behalf. That is not allowed. Right? Duty not to assign his office. You're able to understand the difference, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Finally, I think Kushal remembered we discussed something. Nobody seems to remember what you have discussed at all. So any doubts on duties of directors, especially point number 6, very, very important. Short, they will ask you a question on point number 6, whether assignment of office is possible or not. Okay, tell me whether a woman director needs to follow this point number 8 to 6.
Yes, she needs to.
Yes.
Reason?
She is a director.
Simple. She is a director. What about say nominee director?
Yes. It applies to all directors.
Exactly. It does not matter which category of director you are. Your duty bond under 166. This is applicable to all directors. Please keep that in mind. Right? You cannot say I'm independent director. Duties does not apply to me. I'm a woman director. Duties does not apply to me.
Once being a director, she enjoys the as a capacity as a director. So she has to follow everything, each and every rule as a director also.
Exactly, right? Rights and duties applicable to all of them. Doesn't matter you're executive, non-executive. Doesn't matter you're independent, woman. Okay, doesn't matter you're nominee. Got it right? Okay, now I'm appointing an independent director. Tell me what is a prerequisite for independent director? What is your advice to me?
Appointment, you have to, that director should have a DIN number that should be proposed by the company, and should have a data bank registration which is given by IICA.
Okay, perfect. Now company is saying, okay, you have fulfilled two categories, two conditions. You hold a DIN You hold a data bank registration. Now let me appoint you as a director. Right? So in that case, for independent director, maximum that I can hold office is for 5 years, maximum. Further extend to another 5-year term. So this is called one term. So likewise, I can have maximum 2 terms as an independent director. For a small shareholder director, what's a term period?
3 years and 3.
Exactly. For a small shareholder director, 3 years. For an independent director, maximum tenure 5 years. Likewise, 2 terms.
2 consecutive 5-year terms.
Exactly.
2 terms.
Two terms of 5 years. Okay. Can a small shareholder have a 2 consecutive term of 3 years? Is that allowed?
No, it's not allowed.
As there is
Not
a cooling
allowed.
off period.
Correct. Exactly. So similar provision is applicable to independent director also. Right? He can hold office for a maximum of 2 years, 2 consecutive terms. Okay. Then there is a cooling off period for next 3 years.
Means 5 plus 5 plus 3. It can be.
5 is your appointment term. Then 3 years you can't be appointed in any capacity. Okay. Not an independent director, not any director, not an employee, nothing.
Okay.
Understood, right?
Got it, Manoj. So what the act says is like, if an independent director first 5-year term completed, the board reappoints him for the next 5 years, provided which he has a cooling off period of 3 years in which he is not related to the organization in any way.
No. After first tenure of 5 years, he can immediately be appointed another 5 years. No cooling period.
No, that's
Only
right.
after 10 years.
Only after the second term he will be going
Yes.
for a cooling off period of 3 years before
Exactly.
the board decides to reappoint him again.
Correct. So now let us take an example. Board does not want to appoint him for a tenure of 5 years, one term. It wants to see whether he is a right candidate or not. So let us say board decides to appoint only for 2 years or 3 years. Let us take for 3 years. So initially board is also very doubtful that okay, let us not make him a director for 5 years because he is not liable to retire by rotation, because he is a fixed tenure candidate. We don't know. So in that case, let us initially go ahead with 3 years. If it's good, then we can offer him for 5 years. Usually that's what happens. In that case, your first tenure will be that 3 years only.
Correct.
Okay, second tenure, whatever, 3 years or 5 years, whatever it is. Okay, so after 2 terms, it does not matter you complete 10 years, 8 years, 7 years. The moment you complete 2 years, you have to mandatorily come under that 3-year cooling period. Got it, right?
Like beforehand only we'll get to know that my tenure will be 3 years, 2 years.
Correct. So at the time of appointment, okay, so you will be given an offer letter or appointment letter saying, look, we are appointing you, proposed to be appointing you as a independent director for 2 years or 3 years or for 5 years. That is one term. Okay, then again, reappointment will happen nearest to your closing term of first year.
Okay, sir.
It does not matter. Again, I'm repeating, it does not matter completion of tenure. You can have tenure of 1 year also. Second term can be tenure of 2 years also. So you can complete 2 tenures of 3 years. 1 year first term tenure, second tenure of 2 years. So total 3 years. Okay, and next cooling has to happen for next 3 years.
So whatever the period, irrespective of the time period you are being appointed, the moment you complete the second term, you have to go for the 3 years cooling off period.
Exactly. The question will clearly specify Mr. Sidharth was appointed as an independent director for a period of 3 years. Now the company proposed to appoint him for a period of 7 years. Please advise. Now what is your answer?
Can be appointed for a
Can you repeat it?
Right. Did you get the question first? I'll
No, no.
repeat.
Yeah.
First tenure company is appointing Siddharth for 3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Second company is saying
Term.
I am appointing Siddharth for 7 years.
Cannot be because
No.
second it will
One
be
term cannot be more than 5 years.
Exactly. The term at no cost can exceed 5 years. Please
5
remember
years.
that.
So first tenure can be 3 years, second tenure can be 5 years, and then a cooling period of 3 years has to be there.
Correct. So your advice exactly same thing. Look, boss, you appointed him as 3 years initially. Now maximum you can appoint him for next 5 years. Then you make sure Siddharth gets a cooling period of 3 years. Then you can bring him as an independent director.
exactly.
Got it right?
Yes. So the 3-step will be like this. The first tenure has completed 3 years. For the second tenure, he can only be appointed for 5 years, and then provided
Maximum.
he goes for maximum 5 years, and then provided he goes for a 3-year schooling period, and then can be brought back into the organization.
Correct. Now take an example. You are appointed as a company secretary. Now management is coming, directors, my MD is coming to you for advice. He's saying, please advise me. I need to appoint independent directors on board. You tell me which all companies need to have an independent director and what is the tenure. Should I mandatorily need to have 5 tenure, 5 years of 2 tenures, or how is it? Now you advise that managing director.
One term can be less than 5 years also.
Okay.
It can be consecutive also. But after 2 consecutive 2 terms, there should be a cooling period of 3 years.
Okay, so which all company needs to have an independent director?
All listed companies and
Yeah.
public companies of 10 crore or more paid up share capital, turnover 100 crore or and the 50 crore or more outstanding loans to ventures.
Perfect. Got it right? Any doubts? Any doubts on independent director appointment? As I said, please remember all directors are appointed at the general meeting only. Right? In this case, independent director, please remember first tenure, ordinary resolution. What is ordinary resolution?
50% of acceptance.
Correct. So you're voting, when you propose that matter before shareholder, you need to have more than 51% voting in favor of that resolution. However, for second tenure,
It is
the resolution
with 75% of
exactly.
voting.
Exactly. You're able to understand the difference between first tenure and second tenure?
Yes.
First tenure OR, second tenure SR.
Yes.
Okay, go back to that where we had written board's report. When we had made no board's report, there are 5 or 6 points we had written. Go back to that point and write down whenever directors are appointed or whenever director resigns or whenever director is removed, you need to disclose that in your board's report. Can anybody repeat what we have written in the board's report till now?
Wherever the board does not accept whatever is recommended by any committee, proper implementation of risk management policy, and CSR committee composition.
Okay.
And the next is section 134 board evaluation.
Okay.
That is public company paid up share capital more than or equal to 25 crore or more. And reasons for not spending of CSR.
Perfect. Perfect. So at this point now, any appointment or any removal or any resignation.
Please repeat that sentence.
Any appointment of all kind of directors, any removal or any resignation.
In this has to be what in the second part of the sentence is
See, your disclosure should be made to shareholders through the board's report. So board's report should contain a statement saying who are the directors you appointed during the year, what is the category of the directors, who are the directors who have resigned from the company, who are the directors you have removed from the company. Any doubts on independent director provision? Any doubts? I'll wait for
Excuse me.
5 minutes. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, can you explain once again the terminal, sir? I couldn't get it.
Term. Which one?
The second topic, sir, is terminal. Terminal. TIRBNU. Terminal. Removal of the directors of terminal.
Term. So look, I'll come back to that removal. There is a separate section 169, right? So whenever you're appointing a director during the financial year, this board's report, please remember it's a year on year. It will give you statement for the year, entire year performance. So any appointment that you made during the year or any directors that resigned themselves during the year or from the company you have removed any director, be it any category of director, you need to disclose in the board's report. Got it right?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts on independent directors point? No doubts?
No doubt, sir. But definition of independent director, there's a lot of points we have to see, and if I have any doubt, I'll come back.
Yeah, you need to actually remember. Just remember, look, we have discussed who cannot be considered as independent director, right?
Yes.
So that is very small, meaning for understanding it's very small. You can just remember who cannot be first, and subsequently you can go with who can be independent director.
Okay, sir. The first A to C is who can be, right? And D, E, F is who can be.
Yeah, so better you refer this tabular form.
Table.
Very
Okay.
simple. Okay, remuneration of independent directors. Remuneration of directors we discussed. Can you remember, recall remuneration part?
Unlock
NRC.
fish, sitting fish.
Correct. Okay, NRC recommends the remuneration. Okay, Siddharth, you are saying something?
Now the director's remuneration that remains maximum to 1 lakh rupees.
Okay, what is that 1 lakh rupees?
A sitting fish
Sitting fees for what?
for the
Independent director.
independent.
For meetings.
Meeting, board meeting.
For attending board and committee meetings.
Yes.
Right. So whenever you are independent director, how are you remunerated? One is for your attendance. Okay, 1 lakh is maximum for attending board and committee meetings. Okay, and in case company has profits, then it will pay as per the percentage. Okay, there is a separate section 197. I'll tell you what is the percentage. But as of now, remember, whenever company has profits, company will pay you certain percentage of profits to you who as independent directors, or it will pay you sitting fees, or it can be both. Right?
So which means you're telling like if the company has adequate amount of profit, then the independent director will be entitled to the sitting fees as well as a percentage of profit.
See, your sitting fees again determine that anyway director will
That is
get.
already determined by the Bear Act, so that is fixed.
Okay. Okay, that again will be determined how much to give and all. Whether to give or not give, that is also there.
Okay.
Okay, assuming he gets a sitting fees, okay, he will also get a profit, share in your profit, like a partner. He gets it.
It's only when the company has the profit.
Correct. Because loss making company, there is a different provision that is applicable.
Okay.
As of now, remember, the moment company is making profit, company can determine whether to pay him or not. That is left to the company. Okay? Like your managing director, like your WTD, he does not receive monthly remuneration.
No
He
fixed
does
pay.
not get salary. Independent director does not get salary. What they get is either sitting fees or they get yearly profits, determining on the basis of your profits. Got it, right? So the moment company is having loss, Schedule 5 is applicable, which I'll tell you going forward. Please note down profit as per 197, payment as per 197, loss as per Schedule 5. Sitting fees, you need not see both. Sitting fees independent. Don't see 97, 197, don't see Schedule 5. Sitting fees, irrespective of what is there, you make profit or not, you are eligible to pay sitting fees.
So loss as per Schedule 5.
That sitting fees is maximum 1 lakh, is it, sir?
Maximum 1 lakh.
Okay.
Company can themselves decide whether they need to pay 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, it's depending on them.
Okay.
But maximum that is 1 lakh.
1
But
lakh.
that 1 lakh rupees is also on the discretion of the company, right, Manoj? Whether to
Correct.
pay or not.
Correct. So upfront, while appointing any individual as an independent director, they will in the appointment letter they will specify, saying you will be forming part of so and so committee as a member, or holding chairpersonship as so and so committee and board. So we will be paying this kind of remuneration in the terms of profit or as a sitting fees. Okay, now director is saying, no, I don't accept 1 lakh, pay me 5 lakh sitting fees. What is your answer?
Not possible.
Not possible because the maximum limit itself is 1 lakh.
Correct. So be confident with your answer. The act allows only maximum 1 lakh, either for committee or for board. It cannot go beyond that.
Sir, is there any rule or section for 1 lakh?
Come to page number 706.
Section 149, subsection 9.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So what happens in case of profit? Which section is applicable?
197.
197, subsection 5.
Okay. What happens in case of loss? Which schedule is applicable?
Schedule 5.
5.
Correct. So in case of loss, do I need to see section 197?
No.
No.
Only schedule 5.
The sitting fee for both loss or profit.
There are any doubts still here on independent directorship? See, practically what happens is whenever we get any appointment in the company for independent director position, that person obviously he will not have any registration in the data bank, or he may or may not have a DIN number. So from being a company secretary side, we help them before appointment is made. We make sure, it's a practically I am saying, we make sure that we register that person in the data bank. We apply for the DIN if it does not have, then the appointment process takes place. That's what happens practically. So being a company secretary, you will do all those things. Before the actually your nom-rem committee takes into consideration his appointment, right? Okay, tell me if CFO needs to comply with section 166, section 166.
It's not a director.
What is 166?
Rules of director. Rules to be followed by director.
Rights and duties of directors, right?
Yeah, correct.
Whether company secretary is bound by that 166?
Only directors.
Okay, what about managing director? Is he bound by that? Sure?
Is managing director is not director, right? Or is he? Not sure. He's an executive director. So he is.
That's what I'm saying. Don't get confused with the provision. Director means all kind of directors. I clearly told you. It does not matter executive, non-executive, women director, WTD, whole-time director, does not matter MD. Director means provision will be applicable to you. Don't get confused. Whatever the question may be, don't get confused.
Okay. Sir, but in the types of directors, managing director is not mentioned, right?
That is a separate category of section, that is 196. All this covered under 149. 196, I will deal with that separately. 196 deals with managing director, WTD, your manager. 3 categories are there as per 196.
Okay.
That's why whatever nomenclature does not matter to you, right? You need to comply with 166. Okay, tell me, a director is also a company secretary in the company, whether he is duty bound to comply with 166.
Yes.
Even though you are holding dual position, does not matter. You are a managing director, you are also a CEO, does not matter. You are a whole-time director and a CFO, does not matter. You are a director. Got it right?
Yes.
So any doubts till yesterday class and today class before we wind up another 2-3 minutes?
As of now, no.
No doubts? Nothing you have understood or everything you have understood? I am not sure.
This pecuniary relationship of independent directors in case of government company. Can you explain once again, please?
For a government company, right?
Just under that 704, that below the table, that two lines I could not understand. The clause C of section 149 subsection 6 with the notification.
Yeah, so for a government company, even though if you have a pecuniary relationship, you are exempt, you are still allowed to nominate. That person can be an independent director. For a government company only.
Even though you have the link to the company, you can be an independent director of the company.
Because government is nominating that person, no?
Okay. No, yeah, the authorities are there.
Only in case pecuniary relationship, other condition needs to be satisfied.
Yes.
Which means only, even though you have a prior relationship with them, the pecuniary relationship, monetary. Suppose you are doing business with them, service, sales, purchase of goods, anything like that, and you have made a profits, loss, whatever in that relationship. In that case, still that person can be recommended for independent director. Only in case of government companies. Look, also for government companies, what we have seen is, since government by notification, what they'll do is they will send out a notification tomorrow saying this guy is appointed as a director in this government company. Okay, so usually that person will be in either IAS, IPS or some civil servant. That person will not have any DIN number. Practically for a government company, that what happens. Government by virtue of notification, it will say this guy is a director. Now practically for a company secretary of that government company, it's a problem. Because the law says
they have to do all this process of getting his DIN registered and all that.
Correct. So just imagine, government has notified today Manoj to be appointed as an independent director. I do not have DIN. Now company, we will receive that notification after 10-15 days. Right. Then after 10-15 days, then I will ask him for DIN. I will basically it will be IAS IPS officer only. I will say, sir, please give me your DIN. That guy will say, Manoj, I don't have DIN.
Then it's already 15 days delay. Now the company secretary is going to file.
Correct. I cannot invalidate that notification also. I cannot say, no, government, please revoke this notification. It does not have DIN. That is not allowed. That you cannot say to the government, right?
You have to go and make the DIN registration and get everything done.
Yeah. Even though your notification says today's date, but your effective date of appointment will be on the date of DIN only, procurement of DIN. Practically, this is the challenges for government company. Next class, I will show you what exactly the government company non-compliance is also. Sure. Right, practically government companies, what challenges they face. For a public company, listed company and private company, there is no challenge. For a government company, there are a lot of challenges. Okay, we'll wind up. Any doubts still here? Please ask me. 2 minutes, I'll give you. Any doubts, please? Okay, tell me, second tenure appointment. Okay, approval of shareholders. Only you have got voting 66%. Whether you can reappoint that person as a independent director for second term?
No.
Resolution 75% or more.
Minimum 75% required. What about for first term? 66%?
Okay.
Possible. 50% is only required.
Perfect. Okay, please go back and revise. Okay, we'll complete this chapter in the next week. Right? Any doubts is there? Please make down. We can discuss in the next class. Very important one, small shareholder we discussed, independent director we have discussed, duties of directors we have discussed. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then take care. Happy festival. See you next week. Right?
Yes, sir. Happy
Thank you,
Festival.
Manoj. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.